Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good tomorrow, or whatever it is, wherever you are right now. Welcome to our podcast. This is John Pershing Smith, or JP to my friends. Our story today is about going from the garbage heap to the penthouse. And I'll give you our heroine's name at the end of the story, but maybe you can figure it out before then. Question for you. Can one person truly beat the worst situations and become a star? Not once, but twice. The subject of our talk this morning was born on May the 4th, 1929 in Brussels, Belgium, was a blue blood and a cosmopolitan from birth. Her mother, the Baroness Ella van Heestra, was of Dutch descent, and her father was born in Serbia. Our girl overcame war, malnutrition, and broken dreams to later live the Hollywood dream. This is how she went from being a secret messenger to Hollywood's golden girl. At the age of 10, and after Britain declared war on Germany in September 1939, her mother relocated her daughter back to the Netherlands in the hope that, as during the World War I, the Netherlands would remain neutral and be spared a German attack. While there, she attended the Arnhem Conservatory from 1939 to 1945. She began taking ballet lessons during the last years at boarding school and continued training in Arnhem, becoming their star pupil. After the Germans invaded the Netherlands in 1940, she used the name Ella van Heemstra because an English-sounding name was considered dangerous during the German occupation. Her family was profoundly affected by the occupation, as were most, and with her later stating that, had we known that we were going to be occupied for 5 years, we might have all shot ourselves. We thought it might be over next week, 6 months, next year, but that's how we got through. In 1942, her uncle was executed in retaliation for an act of sabotage by the resistance movement. While he had not been actively involved in the act, he was targeted due to his family's prominence in Dutch society. A half-brother was deported to Berlin to work in a German labor camp, and another half-brother went into hiding and escaped the same fate. We saw young men put against the wall and shot, and they'd close the street and then open it and you could pass by again. Don't discount anything awful you hear or read about the Nazis. It's worse than one could ever imagine. After her uncle's death, she and her mother left Arnhem to live with her grandfather, Baron van Heemstra, in nearby Velp. Around that time, she performed silent dance performances in order to raise money for the Dutch resistance effort. During the Dutch famine that followed the winter of 1944, the Germans blocked the resupply routes of the Dutch people's already limited food and fuel supplies as retaliation for railway strikes that were held to hinder German occupation. Like others, her family resorted to making flour out of tulip bulbs to bake cakes and biscuits. She developed acute anemia, respiratory problems, and edema as a result of malnutrition. After the war ended in 1945, her mother moved her and her siblings to Amsterdam, where she began ballet training under Sonia Gaskell, a leading figure in Dutch ballet. As the family's fortunes had been lost during the war, her mother supported them by working as a cook and a housekeeper for a wealthy family. Our heroine made her film debut in 1948, playing a stewardess in Dutch in 7 Lessons, an educational travel film. Later that year, she moved to London to take up a ballet scholarship. She supported herself with part-time work as a model. After she was told, despite her talent, that her small height and weak constitution, which was the after effect of wartime malnutrition, would make the status of prima donna unattainable, she decided at that time to concentrate on acting. While her mother worked in menial jobs to support them, Our Lady appeared as a chorus girl in a musical theater, High Button Shoes, in 1948 at the London Hippodrome. During her theatrical work, she took elocution lessons to develop her speaking skills. After being spotted by a casting director while performing, she was registered as a freelance actress with the British Picture Corporation. She appeared in some minor roles in 1951 before being cast in her first major supporting role in The Secret People, 1952, in which she played a ballerina, performing all of her own dancing sequences. She was then offered a small role in a film being shot in both English and French, Monte Carlo Baby, 1952, which filmed in Monte Carlo. Coincidentally, French novelist Colette was in Monte Carlo during the filming and decided to cast her in the title role in the Broadway play called Gigi. She went into rehearsals having never spoken on stage and required private coaching. When Gigi opened on 24 November 1951, she received tremendous praise for her performance. Life magazine called her a hit, while the New York Times stated that her quality is so winning and so right that she is the success of the evening. She also received a Theatre World Award for the role. The play ran for 219 performances before going on tour in 1952 in Pittsburgh and visited Cleveland, Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles before closing on May the 16th, 1953, 500 starving children, and had UNICEF send food. Of the trip, she said, quote, "I have a broken heart, orphanage in Ethiopia that housed 500 starving children, and had UNICEF send food." Of the trip, she said, quote, "I have a broken heart. I feel desperate. I can't stand the idea that her experiences in Venezuela and Ecuador that the largest part of humanity is suffering." End quote. In October, she went to South America, and her experiences in Venezuela and Ecuador, she told the United States Congress, quote, "I saw tiny mountain communities, slums, and shanty towns receive water systems for the very first time by some miracle, and the miracle is UNICEF. I watched boys build their own schoolhouse with bricks and cement provided by UNICEF." She toured Central America in February 1989 and met with leaders in Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. In April, she visited Sudan as part of a mission called Operation Lifeline. Because of civil war, food had been cut off. The mission was to ferry food to southern Sudan. In October 1989, she went to Bangladesh, where John Isaac, a UN photographer, said, quote, "Often the kids would have flies all over them, but she would just go and hug them. I've never seen that. Other people hesitated to do that, but she would just grab them and give them sincere hugs. Children would just come up to hold her hand, touch her. She was like the Pied Piper." In October of 1990, she went to Vietnam in an effort to collaborate with the government for national UNICEF-supported immunization and clean water programs. In September 1992, just 4 months before her death, she went to Somalia. Calling it apocalyptic, she said, quote, "I walked into a nightmare. I've never seen famine in Ethiopia and Bangladesh, but I have seen nothing like this. So much worse than I could possibly have imagined. I wasn't prepared for this." United States President George H.W. Bush presented her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in recognition of her work with UNICEF, and the Academy Award of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences posthumously awarded her the Jean Shebolt Humanitarian Award for her contribution to humanity. In 2002, at the United Nations Special Session on Children, UNICEF honored her legacy of humanitarian work by revealing a statue at UNICEF's New York headquarters. Her service for children is also recognized U.S. Fund for UNICEF Society. Fashion icon, humanitarian, philanthropist, Hollywood legend, Audrey Hepburn would have turned 94 this year. One woman, a beloved actress, turning from the fame of Hollywood to humanitarian, can and did make a difference in our worlds. Think about it. How many of us are doing something to really help change the lives of people around the world? We can, and we will. Let me close today with this. Ladies and gentlemen, you put yourself in an incredible position, because no matter what anyone says or does, you are a winner. I remember a quote from my past days. It says, "Be bold, and great and mighty forces will come to your aid." As Mr. Paul Harvey said, now you know the rest of the story. God bless you. Make it an awesome day. Thanks for tuning in today. I look forward to seeing you all in the winner's circle.